Chapter 1301. Are you talking about the Heavenly Phoenix Douluo and Dark Phoenix Douluo? Who GA asked. That's right. They're both extremely proud women and were known as exceptional talents in our generation. If their admirers were to line up, the line would stretch all the way from Shrek Academy to the Spirit Pagoda. However, they both fell in love with Yangming, and that's when the tragedy began. The Heavenly Phoenix Douluo became the vice chairman of the Spirit Pagoda in the end, while the Dark Phoenix Douluo became one of the 4 heavenly monarchs of the Holy Spirit cult. Following the Shrek Academy bombing, she even went as far as to abduct Yangming's soul. Hu Jie's brows furrowed tightly upon hearing this. How troublesome. This is why I've remained single all this time. I have no such concerns. The amorous Douluo chuckled. Old man Hu, if you don't lose some weight, you'll most likely be single for life. You should shut up and eat more. Tang Wuling returned to his room and sat on his bed with a bright gleam in his eyes. The trial of 5 gods. All of the opponents that he was going to face were definitely at the pinnacle of the 5 respective disciplines. He had been improving far too quickly these past days. He had broken his 12th golden dragon king seal, manifested a spiritual domain, and became an 8-ring soul Douluo. Any single one of these breakthroughs would be extremely remarkable already. Yet he had completed all of them in just a few months. It was undoubtedly the case that he was far more powerful than before, but at the same time, his foundation had become slightly shaky, and he was still yet to truly incorporate all of his powers into a cohesive package. After cultivating the body sex congenital secret method, he was able to reflect on the improvements that he had made through refining his own body, and this had helped him integrate all of his powers. But if things were to continue at this rate, it would take a long time for him to complete this process. The battle against the smiling Douluo had benefited him immensely. In particular, he had developed a far better grasp over his time reversal domain and millennium white clouds. However, that was still just a sparring match, after all, and he needed a true battle of life and death to force him to fully tap into his latent potential. Of course, Tang Wuling had no confidence at all in the upcoming trial of 5 gods, but this was going to be an extremely important and positive experience for him. On top of that, the Tang sect had already decided that their bottom line was actually far lower than the Douluo Empire had imagined, so he definitely couldn't pass up this opportunity. After making the decision to participate in the trial of 5 gods, Tang Wuling had constantly been in a state of extreme excitement, and this was something that he hadn't felt for a very long time. The current 5 challenges were definitely different from those of ancient times, and the disciplines involved were mechas, battle armor, soul skills, weapons, and soul spirits. It was undoubtedly the case that the pinnacle of the 5 challenges was going to be the battle armor master battle, but that didn't mean that the other 4 battles were going to be any less challenging. The Douluo Empire definitely had rules surrounding the trial, so he had to ascertain those rules before devising a strategy. With that in mind, Tang Wuling contacted the smiling Douluo. Whole Master Hu, please request from the Douluo Empire the exact times when the 5 challenges are going to be held, as well as a detailed set of rules for all of the challenges, so I can make preparations accordingly. Also, I have a request that I would like you to pass on to the Imperial family. Go on, Sect Master. Hu Jie was starting to become quite excited as he listened to Tang Wuling's calm voice. He had once been a hot-blooded young man as well, and he was also very much looking forward to this trial of 5 gods, which hadn't taken place in the Douluo for over 10,000 years. My condition is that regardless of whether I win or lose the challenges, I want all 5 challenges to go ahead, Tang Wuling said. This trial was going to be very important for refining his body and mind, so he didn't want to miss out on the rest of the challenges if he were to lose the first one. Furthermore, this condition certainly wasn't out of line, and the Douluo Empire was essentially obliged to comply as the trial of 5 gods they had proposed was extremely unfair to begin with. All right, I'll pass on your request. There shouldn't be any problems with getting this condition granted. After ending the call, Tang Wuling immediately began to meditate on his bed. He had to take advantage of every single second that was available to him. Even if he could only make a tiny improvement, it would help him immensely during the upcoming trial of 5 gods. What? Trial of 5 gods? How could this be? Dayuna was sobbing into her pillow, but her sobs immediately cut off as she sat bolt upright before turning to Dayuan. Wasn't the trial of 5 gods something that only existed in legends? How could there possibly be a single person who could defeat an entire empire's most powerful beings in 5 major disciplines? The trial of 5 gods was something that Father had already decided in advance, except there was originally supposed to be an age restriction imposed on our empire's representatives. However, he rejected you today, which made Father very angry, and he decided to do away with that restriction. At this point, Dayuan's fury had already abated slightly, and he was more so disappointed by how things had played out. If the age restriction had been imposed, perhaps he would have had the chance to compete in one of the 5 trials. As things stood now, that was clearly impossible. How could Father do this? This is clearly unfair, and it's going to tarnish the image of our empire as well. How are our people going to see us? We're a mighty empire, yet we're targeting such a young sect master in such an underhanded way. Even if we win, there's no glory to be had. Dayuna yelled. Dayuan was rooted to the spot upon hearing this. Father is only doing this for you. Which side are you on? Have you forgotten that he just rejected you? Wake up. Yuna, he's not your husband. I'm just saying this from the perspective of a neutral bystander. Dayuna countered in an unconvincing manner as a deep blush appeared on her face. Dayuan shook his head with a wry smile. In any case, it's too late to change anything now. Father has already issued the challenge, and Tang Wuling accepted. I have no idea what he's thinking. He knows he's going to lose, so why insist on making a fool out of himself? Having said that, it would be unwise for us to sour our relationship with the Tang sect over something like this, so our Imperial family has already decided not to announce the results of the challenges to the public. Dayuna's breathing was slightly heavy, but there was a contemplative look in her eyes. She suddenly asked, Brother, do you think there's a chance Tang Wuling could win a challenge or two? Dayuan raised an eyebrow in response. Do you really want him to win? Dayuna bit down on her lower lip and said in a quiet voice, I already know he loves someone else, and this isn't the first time he's rejected me. I was just thinking that if he could win 1 or 2 of the 5 challenges, then that would indicate that he is indeed one of the brightest young talents across all 3 continents. In that case, do you think Father would agree for me to become his concubine? What did you just say? Dayuan stared at Dayuna in a stunned manner. Never did he think that he would hear her say something like this. I think you've gone mad. A furious voice rang out from outside, and Dai Tianling strode in like an enraged tiger. Dayuan extended a respectful greeting toward his father before stepping away to the side like a frightened rabbit. Dai Tianling glowered at Dayuna and roared, Do you not have any self-respect? How can a princess like you consider becoming someone's concubine? Setting that aside, monogamy is mandated by law in both our empire and in the Douluo Federation. Becoming a concubine doesn't even work from a practical perspective. Chapter 1302. In contrast with Dayuan, Dayuna had never been fearful of her father. All of the laws only apply to commoners. What's wrong with polygamy? I think polygamy is very normal. Monogamy is negatively impacting society as it's artificially skewing the gene pool. Exceptional people deserve to have more partners so they can leave more of their genes behind, thereby advancing human society. In contrast, those who are unable to attract partners don't deserve them in the first place. This is the basic premise of natural selection. What a load of nonsense. You. Dai Tianling was just about ready to explode. Father, how many women do you have? Dayuna immediately dealt him a fatal blow that instantly rendered him at a complete loss for words. You were the one who taught me this by example, Father. You are the most exceptional man in our Douluo Empire, so you can have more spouses, and everyone regards that as completely normal. Similarly, Tang Wuling is also very outstanding, so why should he be relegated to monogamy? Dai Tianling had no idea how to respond to this twisted argument. Theoretically, Dayuna was right, but it just sounded wrong to him for some reason. You are a princess. How could you share a husband with someone else? Dai Tianling roared. Dayuna countered. Didn't you teach me and my brothers that we are equals to our people? It's exactly because of this philosophy that you're so loved and revered by the people. Did you say that just for the sake of it? Please stop. Yuna, you're just making Father angry now. Dayuan hurriedly tried to step in, only to be pushed aside by Dai Tianling. Piss off. Dayuan could only slash away in an indignant manner. His father couldn't bear to scold Dayuna, so he was taking his anger out on his son instead. Let me tell you this, Dayuna, I initially planned to ease up on the difficulty of the trial of 5 gods and impose an age restriction. I was prepared to eat my own words so our Douluo Empire isn't seen in a bad light, but now, I'm going to throw the most powerful beings in our empire at him. He wants to participate in all 5 challenges even if he loses, so I'll grant him that wish. I'll make sure he loses every single one of those challenges, and I'm going to broadcast everything to the entire empire. This is the price he has to pay for rejecting my daughter. As for you can become his concubine over my dead body or what? Dai Yuna looked up at Dai Tianling with a pitiable expression. Or if he wins all 5 challenges. Dai Tianling said in a cold voice before storming away. Dai Yuna immediately pouted with displeasure. Father is so stupid. Shh, please quiet down. We're the ones who father is going to vent his anger on later. Dai Yuan said in an exasperated manner. Dai Yuna said, father needs to open his eyes. If brother 3 wants me, then I don't mind becoming his concubine at all. If father doesn't agree, I can always just elope with him. Dai Yuan was completely speechless as he stared at Dai Yuna. How could you say that? Father would be very sad if he heard you say this. Dai Yuna replied, it's not like I'm not coming back. Once I come back with his child, father will have no choice but to accept our relationship. Dai Yuan's voice immediately spiked up a few octaves. He suddenly felt as if his mischievous little sister from a few years ago had returned. What? Dai Yuna looked up at him with a smile. You win. Dai Yuan sighed as he sagged like a balloon. A smug look appeared on Dai Yuna's face. I suddenly realized something just now. Happiness is something that needs to be pursued. Tang Wolin, you're not getting away from me. Even if I have to drug you, I'll have your child. There's no way you can abandon me then. Thump. Dai Yuan slammed his head against the wall. You're watching the Imperial television network, and our latest story involves the newly assigned Tang Sect Master, Kang Wolin, who has come to visit our empire. After some diplomatic negotiations, the Tang Sect Master will be participating in a mock trial of 5 gods, which is a trial that was devised in ancient times. The trial will last a total of 5 days, and will be broadcasting the entire event live and free of charge. This is definitely going to be a spectacle for the ages, so make sure you don't miss it. The first match of the trial will be held 3 days from now, and the next 4 trials will be held on successive days thereafter. We will strive to bring you the latest coverage on the event. This piece of news quickly spread through the entire empire like wildfire. The people of the Douluo Empire were far from unfamiliar with the Tang Sect, and the legends of the Tang Sect were even part of history textbooks used in schools. It was a mandatory class that everyone had to take. The member of the Tang Sect that the Douluo Empire was most proud of was Spirit Douluo Huo, who was a member of the royal family, and also the founder of the Spirit Pagoda. Hence, the people of the Douluo Empire were all very fond of the Tang Sect, but no one knew who Tang Wolin was. However, at the same time, his name seemed to be rather familiar somehow. Soon, all types of information regarding this young Tang Sect master was being dug up. As it turned out, he was the leader of Shrek's 7 monsters, who had competed in the Continental Young Elites tournament and defeated the Monster 8 Kings at the time. Replays of that match were broadcasted on several channels, and Tang Wolin had become a household name in the Douluo Empire within the short span of just a few days. What a sly old fox. Hu Jie couldn't help but praise after watching all of the televised coverage of the upcoming trial of 5 gods. On that day, Dai Tianling had seemed to be extremely enraged, but from the way that he was treating this matter, it was quite clear that he hadn't been led astray by his own emotions at all. By proclaiming the very real trial of 5 gods as a mock trial of 5 gods, he was making the event out to be a friendly competition. After that, he had even released a statement encouraging the young soul masters and mecha pilots of the empire to derive motivation from the trial of 5 gods. In doing so, he was sparing on the entire population and playing to their deep-rooted reverence toward individual power. Even more importantly, this announcement would confirm the strong relationship between the Tang Sect and the Douluo Empire. Just as there were definitely spies from the Dou Spirit Empire and Douluo Empire in the Federation, the Douluo Federation had to have spies in the Douluo Empire as well. So this information would quickly return to the Federation. The Tang Sect was already being heavily oppressed in the Federation, and this would undoubtedly deal them another heavy blow. This would only benefit the Douluo Empire as the Tang Sect would be forced to rely even more on the Empire, thereby further distancing them from the Federation. If the Douluo Empire could receive all of the Tang Sect soul technology, then it would definitely be able to advance significantly. At the same time, this would expose Tang Wolin as the Tang Sect master. Even prior to the commencement of the trial of 5 gods, the Douluo Empire had gained an absolute advantage. Hu Jie had communicated with the Imperial family earlier, requesting them to keep Tang Wolin's visit to the Douluo Empire a secret, and the Imperial family had agreed. However, they were breaking their promise with this public announcement, and in response to Hu Jie's protests, the Imperial family had given him a very simple response. The king was still in a state of blind fury, and he had made the decision without considering the consequences. It was now too late to do anything about this, so that was the end of the matter. The smiling Douluo had been rendered completely speechless by this. As the emperor of the Douluo Empire, would Dai Tianling really completely lose his cool over something like this? Only an idiot would believe this alibi. As things turned out, the Douluo Empire had bound the Tang Sect to them through this sly and underhanded tactic, forcing the Tang Sect firmly onto the back foot. Setting aside everything else, the Spirit Pagoda was definitely going to make a huge deal out of this to further oppress the Tang Sect in the Federation. The Tang Sect had just announced that the Spirit Pagoda was colluding with the Holy Spirit cult, but the Spirit Pagoda could use this to counter the controversy that had been created against them. Just the mere thought of the situation was giving the smiling Douluo a headache. He could only imagine what the amorous Douluo had to be going through. Hu Jie heaved an internal sigh. In any case, everything had already happened, and the only thing they could do was face the consequences. Their priority now was to endure the trial of 5 gods, then seal the deal in the negotiations. As for what was happening over at the Federation, that would just have to wait until everything had been taken care of here. The Tang Sect had extremely deep roots in the Federation, so it wouldn't be that easy to shake its foundations. Hu Jie hadn't informed Tang Wolin of any of this, and currently, the latter was in seclusion in his room, awaiting the first match of the trial of 5 gods that was going to take place in 3 days. Chapter 1303. Trial of 5 gods. What an incredible plan from His Majesty. Tang Tang praised. At this moment, there was a group of people gathered in the largest and most luxurious booth of the prosperous pavilion, which was one of the most high-end restaurants in Douluo City. Aside from Spirit King Dai Yuna, all other 7 members of the Monster 8 Kings were present. Long Yue sat in the main seat in silence like an immovable mountain, while Tang Tang was speaking with a look of amazement in his eyes. Wind King Lin San nodded in response. His Majesty really has made a brilliant move here. Judging from the news reports, it won't be easy for the Tang Sect to detach itself from our empire now. It's just that I'm worried about how the Tang Sect will react. The war could break out at any time, so it would be very detrimental to the Tang Sect for news to spread of their sex leader visiting the Douluo continent at a time like this. Will this draw displeasure from the Tang Sect? Dai Yuan replied. It definitely will, but they can't do anything right now. It's actually quite underhanded of us to do this to the Tang Sect when they're only trying to help us, but we have no choice. Tang Wolin brought along a weapon with him known as the heavy iron laser gun, and it can destroy the interiors of mechas while completely bypassing their defenses. Even black mechas are susceptible to this. Only after seeing such a terrifying weapon did we realize that in terms of soul technology, we're still lagging extremely far behind the Federation. If we want to catch up, then our Imperial Research Center alone definitely won't be enough. The conditions proposed by the Tang Sect are slightly rigorous, but considering how the Tang Sect hadn't raised the prices on these important resources even under the current circumstances, we're not completely unwilling to accept their conditions. However, Father came up with this idea after the Tang Sect showed us just how much of a technological disparity there was between us and the Federation. Only by getting the Tang Sect to completely side with us can we truly hope to oppose the Federation in the future. Huolantong turned to Dai Yuan with a peculiar expression. Your Highness, have you forgotten that we're all members of the Tang Sect? We're obliged to report everything you say here to our superiors. Dai Yuan smiled and replied, well, we already did this, so we have to own up to it. The Empire doesn't want anything to drive a wedge between itself and the Tang Sect over something like this. Hence, I'm telling you this in private precisely so you can go back and pass on what I said to the smiling Douluo and Tang Wolin. Our empire truly has no choice, and besides, this situation was caused by Tang Wolin himself. Yi couldn't help but exclaim, just how much do you hate our sect master? Dai Yuan harumphed coldly. Humph, I'd kill him if I could. You didn't see how much he embarrassed father. He rejected the marriage condition right in front of everyone. If he had agreed, then none of this would have been necessary. Yuna is the most beloved princess of our imperial family. All the love that my brothers and I receive from father don't even compare to the love that she receives. Father truly was enraged by Tang Wolin's rejection, so you can't blame us for doing this. Tang Wolin is not someone you can deal with as you please. Long Yue suddenly interjected, and everyone immediately turned toward him. Even though all of them currently occupied high-ranking positions in various important institutions, and Dai Yuan was even the rightful heir to the throne, Dragon King Long Yue was still the leader of the Monster 8 Kings. Hence, when he spoke, everyone listened. What makes you say that, boss? Dai Yuan asked. Long Yue replied, Tang Wulin may be younger than all of us, but his steadfast nature completely belies his age, and he won't just take this without any retaliation. Also, don't ever make the mistake of underestimating him. The trial of 5 gods may not necessarily be an embarrassment for him. At the very least, there's one area where he's far superior to me, and that's his resilience in the face of hardships and failure. On top of that, his aptitude is superior to mine as well. Even teacher is unable to gauge just how powerful he currently is. No way. A stunned look appeared on Shadow King Tang Tang's face as he exclaimed, Are you saying that he's even more powerful than you are, boss? But you're already a titled Douluo. Long Yue replied, I don't know how powerful he is now, but back when we last met in Shrek Academy, he was already no less powerful than I was at the time. Also, Shrek's 7 monsters have always developed at a rate superior to ours, so if we match up against them again, I think we'll still lose. Everyone fell silent upon hearing this. If anyone else had said this, then they would definitely immediately disagree. However, these words held more gravity when spoken by Long Yue. Long Yue was the most competitive one among all of them, and he never accepted defeat, which was why he had constantly stood at the pinnacle of the younger generation. He had already become a titled Douluo at just 25 years of age, and it was pretty much set in stone that he was going to be the next principal of Monster Academy. At present, he was already a vice hall master of the Empire's Holy Hall, and he was also the person with the greatest potential to become a limit Douluo in the entire Empire. However, even he was conceding that he was very likely no match for Tang Wulin. This was a clear indication of just how incredible Tang Wulin's aptitude was. Regardless, I really do want to rematch against them. Winds King Lin San said in a calm manner. Fox King Sumu nodded and chimed in. I do, as well. They've already come here, so how can we pass up this opportunity? Boss, would we be able to have a 7-on-7 match against them prior to the trial of 5 gods? Long Yue's eyes lit up upon hearing this, and he turned to Dai Yuan. What do you think, Your Highness? Dai Yuan's hands balled up into tight fists as he replied. I'm itching for an opportunity to beat the crap out of Tang Wulin. Luan Tong, when you go back to the Tang sect, ask the smiling Douluo if a match can be facilitated between us. Just say that we're trying to help the Tang sect master warm up for the upcoming trial. The match can be held in private in the drill ground of your Tang sect headquarters. Luan Tong took a deep breath and replied, All right, I'll pass on the request. However, there's something that I have to disclose to all of you first. Our sect master had a sparring match against the smiling Douluo on the first day that he arrived, and at the time, only the Tang sect members that were above the titled Douluo level were allowed to spectate the match, so we didn't get to see it. However, many of our titled Douluos were full of praise for our sect master following the sparring match, and at the very least, I'm certain he was able to hold his own against the smiling Douluo in that sparring match. Tang Tang didn't think much of this. So what? It's just a sparring match. The smiling Douluo definitely wasn't going all out. Luan Tong continued. I don't know about the exact details, but I'd advise everyone to be careful. Shrek's 7 monsters are no longer the same Shrek's 7 monsters of the past. A faint smile appeared on Long Yue's face. I don't have the right to participate in the trial of 5 gods, so this will be our only chance. So what even if we lose? Tang Wulin is more than willing to accept failure, so we should be able to do the same. Besides, do all of you really have so little confidence in yourselves? They've been improving these past years, but have we been stagnant this entire time? His voice was loud and powerful, and all of the kings present felt as if their blood had been set alight. Indeed, had they not been working hard these past years? All of them had constantly been making rapid improvements. Even Dai Yuan, who was the rightful heir to the throne, had never slacked off in his cultivation. He was living like a robot every single day, all for the chance to redeem himself. Now, the opportunity for redemption was here, and they couldn't give up on it no matter what. Chapter 1304. Long Yue and the others are challenging us? They really are good friends, aren't they? Shishi said with a hint of mockery in his voice. The smiling Douluo said, the sect master is still in seclusion, so he won't be able to participate. After all, our priority is the trial of 5 gods. If you want to accept their challenge, then wait until after the trial of 5 gods. Shishi turned to Yuan and Yui in New Zealand. In Tang Wulin's absence, the 2 women were the ones who called the shots. There's no need for that, Your Majesty. We'll take them on without Wulin, Yuan and Yui said. The smiling Douluo raised an eyebrow upon hearing this. You'll fight them 6-on-7. Yuan and Yui replied in a calm manner. We're all members of Shrek's 7 monsters, so the 6 of us will be enough. That's right, the 6 of us will be more than enough. Shishi chuckled. It's been a long time since we encountered any powerful opponents. Back when we last fought, Long Yue swatted me away like a fly, but we're no longer the same as we once were, and it's time to take revenge. Boss and Gu Yue had to carry us last time. We have to prove to them now that we no longer need to be carried. The smiling Douluo turned to all of the other members of Shrek's 6 monsters, only to find that all of them wore the same relaxed and confident expressions. Among the Monster 8 kings, Long Yue is already a titled Douluo, and the Tiger King, Fox King, and Wind King are all Soul Douluos. Luan Tong and Yuja are also close to the Soul Douluo level, and only Tang Tang is lagging slightly behind them, but he's still a Soul Sage as well. They're all disciples of the Tang sect as well, so I'm aware of their situation. Among the younger generation, they stand at the pinnacle of the Star Luo Empire, so don't get complacent. If you lose this sparring match, I'm concerned that it'll affect the sect master's mental state going into the trial of 5 gods. Rest assured, Your Majesty, we know what we're doing. Yi Xinglan rose to her feet, and in the instant that she did so, a burst of enormous sword intent erupted from her body, and her eyes became as bright as stars. Even the smiling Douluo involuntarily narrowed his eyes slightly in response. Was this Sword Soul? Do you know how exceptional Tang Wulin was? They were constantly being overshadowed, but were they really as mediocre as their captain made them appear? Of course not. They were also part of Shrek's 7 monsters, and they were truly the elite of the elite. If the 8 monster kings stood at the pinnacle of the Star Luo Empire's younger generation, then the 6 of them were standing at the pinnacle of the entire Douluo Star's younger generation. Soul power ranks alone were no longer clear indications of anything, and Shrek's 7 monsters had never stopped advancing. All right, I'm really looking forward to seeing your match, the smiling Douluo said as a wide smile appeared on his face. He really was anticipating this matchup now as all of the people participating in the match, with the exception of Dai Yuan, were members of the Tang sect. No matter who won and who lost, they were all going to be bright talents who would support the Tang sect in the future, and just the thought of this struck him with a sense of excitement. This really was a generation that was rife with brilliant young talents. What? 6-on-7. Tang Wulin is in seclusion. Even the calm and steadfast Luan Tong couldn't help but flare up with rage upon hearing this. They were being looked down on. They had once defeated Shrek's 7 monsters, yet Tang Wulin had chosen to sit out this rematch. This was a blatant insult. Yes, the sect master is in seclusion to prepare for the trial of 5 gods, so if they wish for a rematch, then only 6 of Shrek's 7 monsters will be available. My apologies, Hall Master, but I can't make a decision on this. However, I'm sure that all of my teammates will view this as an insult, Luan Tong said in a heavy voice. Hu Jie heaved a resigned sigh. We have to prioritize the trial of 5 gods, so we can't just ask the sect master to come out of seclusion. Perhaps you can wait until after the trial of 5 gods, but I have to caution you, you may no longer have the courage to challenge them after the trial. Luan Tong faltered slightly upon hearing this. Is there that much of a disparity between us? Hu Jie replied. I don't know about anyone else, but the sect master's powers are truly well beyond his years. Luan Tong was quite stunned to hear this. Are you saying that the sect master was able to defeat you during your sparring match? Hu Jie shook his head in response. That's not the case. After all, our sect master is only in his early 20s. However, even if I want to defeat him, I'll have to pay a heavy price. It seems to everyone that the sect master will be thoroughly embarrassed during the trial of 5 gods, but I think that he'll at least be able to win 1 or 2 matches. Luan Tong was stunned into silence for a long while before replying. All right, I'll go discuss this with everyone else. Hu Jie continued. Don't misrepresent the situation to them. The sect master really can't participate in this match, so Shrek 7 monsters isn't doing this just to insult you. This is a sparring match anyway, so if you win, you can just have another 7-on-7 match following the trial of 5 gods. Frequent sparring matches will be immensely beneficial for young people like you. Luan Tong departed in a gloomy mood, and the smiling Douluo wasn't sure if this sparring match would go ahead or not. However, regardless regardless of what happened, things were going to be very lively in the Tang sect during this period of time. His only concern was whether the Tang sect would be able to handle the pressure over at the Federation. The amorous Douluo most definitely had his plate full. Unsurprisingly, when Huolontong relayed the response from Shrek 6 monsters to his teammates, everyone was extremely displeased. Shrek's 6 monsters were being far too conceited. They had indeed secured the final victory during the tournament, but they had only just barely scraped through to the championship title from a downright miraculous eruption from Tang Wulin and Gu Yue, and the complacency of Monster Academy had also played a role in their victory. On average, the kings of Monster Academy were 5 years older than Shrek's 7 monsters, so they had naturally had a lot more time to cultivate. In terms of cultivation rank, there was no way that Shrek's 7 monsters could compare with them. However, they were proposing a 6-on-7 match, and the one to sit out on their side was Tang Wulin, who was the most powerful one among them. This was an extremely inflammatory insult. Accept their offer. Long Yue decided, boss, how can we do that? They're missing a person. There's no glory to be had even if we win. Dai Yuan suggested, how about this? You sit out this match as well, boss, and we'll take them on 6-on-6. Tang Wulin clearly has a good reason and isn't just sitting out this match to insult us, but we can't take advantage of this. Long Yue nodded in agreement to this proposal. This was only a sparring match, but they still had to compete with honor. Long Yue was the captain of this team, so he was a direct counterpart to Tang Wulin. As such, if he sat out the match as well, then everything would be fair. Thus, it was decided that this sparring match was going to be held the next morning, in contrast with the sparring match between Tang Wulin and Hu Jie, which could only be spectated by titled Douluos. This match was open to everyone in the Tang sect headquarters. Such a legendary rematch would undoubtedly attract everyone's attention, and also encourage young people to improve. Chapter 1305. As soon as the announcement was made, a massive stir was created within the Tang sect. Many of the Tang sect's disciples outside of Douluo city drove overnight to their headquarters just to be able to witness this match. Of course, what was even more important to them was the opportunity to witness their sect master in action during the trial of 5 gods. The new sect master was rather unfamiliar to everyone, so they all wanted to see just how powerful he was. Long Yue's also sitting out. When Shrek's 6 monsters were informed of the situation by Hu Jie, a joyful smile immediately appeared on Shishi's face. Of course, it was a very sly smile. In that case, we'll wreck them to our heart's content. We'll return the favor for everything they did to us last time. Yuan and Yue aimed to glare at him. Don't get complacent. They're the best that Monster Academy has to offer, and they haven't been slacking off, either, so this match may not be an easy one for us. Yes, mistress, Shishi replied with a cheeky smile. Yue's Heng Yu urged, let's hurry up and get some breakfast, then discuss strategy after that. Who's going to be the standing captain? Yi Xinglan and Yuan and Yue looked at one another before pointing towards Xu Shaoan in unison. Me. Xu Shaoan pointed at herself with a smile, and said, all right then, I'll fill in for captain. Tang Wulin was an assault and control dual system soulmaster, while Xu Shaoan was a pure control system soulmaster. Generally speaking, the commander of a team was always a control system soulmaster as they had to control the entire battlefield. Yue's Heng Yu gave Xu Shaoan an encouraging thumbs up, and his expression suggested that he was full of confidence in her. In the cafeteria of the Tang sect headquarters, Shrek's 6 monsters received a lot of scrutiny. It was really easy to pick them out as they were almost the only unfamiliar faces here. What's wrong with a 7-on-7 match? I'd be more than happy to fill in. Arahang appraised the 6 of them with an indignant look on his face. He was always eager for a battle. Shishi chuckled. It's not that we're keeping you out of this for the sake of it. It's just that this is a rivalry between our Shrek Academy and Monster Academy, so we have to face it on our own. If we add you to the team, they'll definitely accuse us of sourcing external help when they lose. Are you that confident that you'll win? A slightly enraged voice suddenly rang out. Shishi turned to discover an adorable and petite young woman appraising him with an angry look in her eyes. She was eating on the neighboring table, so she was able to overhear Shishi's words. Shishi shrugged in response. I'm just stating the truth. Are you rooting against us? The young woman harumphed. My big sister won't lose. She was Yuji's younger sister, and she was also a Tang sect disciple, as well as a Monster Academy graduate, so she had virtually infinite confidence in the Monster 8 Kings. As such, she was naturally very displeased to hear Shishi and the others speaking as if they had already won the match. Yuan and Yue was present, so Shishi didn't dare to say anything too suggestive. As such, he merely smiled, and said, the proof will be in the pudding. The young woman harumphed. There's no way you can beat my big sister. Shishi chuckled. Is that the only thing you know how to say? All right, seeing as there's no way we can win, we'll be the underdogs, right? Can you cheer for us during the match? The young woman faltered slightly upon hearing this before an enraged look reappeared on her face. I've never seen someone as shameless as you. You're definitely going to get your ass kicked. She then picked up her tray of food and stormed away. Everyone was quite amused by this, and Yue Heng Yu chuckled. We're all Tang sect disciples, but it looks like everyone's rooting against us here. Home court advantage really is something that can't be ignored. Shishi shrugged and asked, what do you think, Lizzie? In response, Lizzie pointed to his own mouth, which was bulging with food, indicating that he was unable to speak. Prove your dominance to everyone through your actions. In a place where individual heroism is revered and romanticized to such an extent, you have to display sufficient power to be taken seriously. Sima Jingkai said. If one were to look closely at him, they discovered that his eyes were filled with excitement. He wouldn't be able to participate in the match today, but he had a role to play in the trial of 5 gods. After all, he was technically Tang Wulin's weapon, so Tang Wulin should be able to wield him in battle. As such, the match where Tang Wulin had the greatest chance of securing victory was most likely the weapons match of the trial of 5 gods. Just as Yue Heng Yu had said, this was the Tang sect, but there were very few people who truly supported them. In the Douluo Empire, Monster Academy was the equivalent of Shrek Academy in the Douluo Federation. Many of the Empire's exceptional talents had graduated from Monster Academy, and that included Tang sect disciples, so they were naturally more supportive of the Monster 8 Kings. Furthermore, Long Yue's generation of the Monster 8 Kings was legendary. At the very least, Monster Academy hadn't been able to produce a group like them before, and in particular, Long Yue himself was an extraordinary talent. Even though they had lost the final match during the youth tournament all those years ago, almost everyone was of the opinion that they were actually more powerful than Shrek's 7 monsters, and had simply lost due to complacency. This opinion was naturally shared by all those who supported Monster Academy. By the time Shrek's 6 monsters arrived at the drill ground in the Tang sect headquarters, the place was already packed to the rafters. At least 500 people had come to spectate the battle, the vast majority of whom were Tang sect disciples. There were also some important figures who had received news of this and somehow gained access to spectate the match. This was a long-awaited rematch between Shrek's 7 monsters and Monster 8 Kings. Furthermore, it had been many years since their last match, so all of them had to have definitely become a lot more powerful. The match was going to be refereed by the smiling Douluo himself in order to ensure safety. As Shrek's 6 monsters strode into the venue, the raucous chatter instantly died down significantly. If this were a public match with commoners spectating, then there would most likely already be a lot of going on. However, this was the Tang sect, after all, and all of Shrek's 7 monsters were high-ranking figures in the Tang sect, while the captain was even the new Tang sect master. Hence, the Tang sect disciples present were all exercising some restraint. Even so, there was certainly no one cheering for them, and it seemed that it was truly them up against the world here. The smiling Douluo greeted them before taking to one side of the competition platform. Are you all ready? I didn't think that so many people would turn up. Almost all of the Tang sect disciples in the 3 neighboring cities have gathered here to watch and learn from this match. Leave it to us, Shishi smiled, and said, it seems that we're not so popular here, but I'm sure that'll change following the match. The smiling Douluo also smiled in response. I certainly hope so. Where are Long Yue and the others? Have they arrived yet? Yue Heng Yu asked. He had the most resentment toward Long Yue as he had almost perished by Long Yue's hands in the past, and he certainly didn't have any good memories of his mountain dragon king martial soul, even though he was far more powerful than he had been back then. The trauma from that experience still lingered somewhat to this day. They should be here soon. Your 6-on-7 proposal has really lit a fire under them. This is their home court, so you better be mentally prepared. The smiling Douluo wasn't actually all that concerned about the outcome. All he wanted was to be able to witness a spectacular match. These young men and women were part of Shrek's 7 monsters, just like Tang Wulin was, so they definitely weren't slouches. On the surface, it appeared that they were all only soul sages, but the students of Shrek Academy could never be judged based on soul power rank alone. Right at this moment, a loud cheer suddenly rang out from one side of the drill ground, and the crowd immediately parted to create a path. A line of people then strode directly toward the competition platform through the path that had been created. The man standing at the forefront of the group had a large bald head and a mountainous aura. It was none other than Dragon King Long Yue. Chapter 1306. Long Yue was wearing a set of grey activewear, and his muscle-bound body seemed to be filled with explosive power. After the passage of so many years, he didn't appear to have changed at all, aside from the fact that he now looked more mature and steadfast. Shrek's 7 monsters were very familiar with Long Yue as he had once been to Shrek Academy with Dai Yuna. However, due to their past differences, they had barely interacted with one another at all. Standing beside Long Yue wasn't the vastly renowned Tiger King Dai Yuan. Instead, it was a beautiful woman wearing the same style of activewear as Long Yue. Her long hair had been arranged into a ponytail, and her bright and piercing eyes were filled with excitement. At this point, Shrek's 6 monsters had already gotten onto the platform, and when the woman saw them, she instantly sprang onto the platform before rushing toward them as quickly as she could. Her actions immediately drew a collective cry of surprise. Was she going to attack even before the match had commenced? However, Shrek's 6 monsters weren't alarmed by this at all. They all strode forward to meet her, and their eyes were filled with excitement as well. I'm so glad you're all still alive. The woman threw her arms around Xu Shaoan and immediately began to sob uncontrollably. Senior disciple sister. The 6 of them yelled in unison. Indeed, this beauty was none other than Xu Mia, a past inner court disciple of Shrek Academy, and she and Long Yue had come together during the Sea God Fate matchmaking convention. As Long Yue was returning to the Douluo Empire with Dai Yuna, Xu Mia had immediately made the decision to follow him. The two of them had already established their relationship, but it was too difficult for Xu Mia's family to come all the way here, so no wedding had been held. However, everyone in Monster Academy already knew Xu Mia as Long Yue's wife. She was also a teacher in Monster Academy who was teaching mecha piloting classes. Ever since she had heard about the Shrek Academy bombing, she hadn't smiled in a very long time. She really wanted to go back, but she couldn't bear to leave Long Yue behind. Long Yue had originally promised her to return to the Douluo continent with her, but the Federation then began to prepare to instigate a war, so it clearly wasn't a good time to go back, and everything had been delayed. As such, Xu Mia had been ecstatic when she had heard that Shrek's 7 monsters were all alive and well, and had come to the Douluo Empire. She had a million questions she wanted to ask them, but this was not an appropriate place to have a conversation. Xu Shaoan, Yizinglan, and Yuan and Yui approached Xu Mia one after another to hug her. Back in the inner court, they had all been close friends. Is there anyone else? Xu Mia sobbed. There are a lot of people who are still alive aside from us, including all of our senior disciple brothers and sisters from the inner court. It's just that the teachers. Tears began to well up in the eyes of Shrek's 6 monsters as well at the mention of this topic. As they were conversing with one another, the monster 8 kings had already stepped onto the competition platform. Standing behind Long Yue was naturally none other than Tiger King Dai Yuan, followed by Fox King Sun Yu, then Wolf King Hulantong, Wind King Lin San, Pagoda King Linja, and Shadow King Teng Teng. The one bringing up the rear was naturally none other than Spirit King Dai Yuna. The 8 of them had parted ways following graduation, but they still regularly met up and dined together. However, it was the first time in many years that they had gathered together for a sparring match. They were clearly far more popular with the spectators than Xu Mia, so after a brief moment of shock in response to Xu Mia's actions, the raucous cheers rang out once again. The monster 8 kings all raised their hands to acknowledge the crowd, and soon, all of their voices combined to form a single chant. Legends, legends, legends. That's right, they were the legends of Monster Academy, the most powerful team that Monster Academy had ever assembled. Even though this was the Tang sect and many of the spectators hadn't come from Monster Academy, they still all joined in on the chants. Tang Tang was starting to become rather emotional. Do you guys hear that? They still remember us. That's right, so we'd better not disappoint them, Hulantong said as he clenched his fists tightly. Fox King Sun Yu closed his eyes and basked in the raucous cheers. All of the blood within his body was churning and burning. Yiji gripped onto Hulantong's hand with her lips tightly pursed. We have to win. We have to win for everyone. Long Yue held up his hands, and the cheers gradually died down. His deep voice then rang out across the entire venue. Thank you for your support, everyone, and we are even more grateful that you still remember us. You should also thank our opponents today for reuniting us. Shrek's 7 monsters have always been opponents that we greatly respect, and we hope to be able to put on a spectacular match for everyone. During the match, I would like to request for everyone to remain silent in order to create a fair environment. Thank you. He then extended a slight bow before striding directly toward Shrek's 6 monsters. Applause instantly filled the entire venue, and Long Yue seemed to be even more imposing, as if he had been boosted by the support from the spectators. The rest of the Monster 8 kings followed closely behind him, and Dai Yuna's eyes were constantly searching through the crowd, but she was quite disappointed upon realizing that the one she was searching for wasn't anywhere to be seen. She wasn't here to compete today. She only wanted to see him, even though he had rejected her, and she wanted to skin him alive. She wanted even more to be with him. Tang Wolin was indeed absent. He was preparing for the upcoming trial of 5 gods. At the thought of the trial of 5 gods, Dai Yuna couldn't help but be concerned for Tang Wolin, but at the same time, she was very proud of him. As expected of the man of her dreams, he refused to give up or cower no matter what hardships were thrown his way. In the eyes of the infatuated Dai Yuna, Tang Wolin had already won in the instant he had agreed to the trial of 5 gods. Just ignore him. He's always acting so serious and uptight, Xu Mia said with a smile, but her eyes were filled with pride as her gaze lingered on Long Yue. Only after coming to the Douluo Empire did she truly come to understand just how influential he was in this empire. He had even been referred to as the future of the empire's sole master world. He had many close friends. He was affiliated with the immensely powerful Monster Academy, and he had a limit Douluo as a teacher. He was perfect in every way. He appeared to be quite rough and insensitive on the outside, but he was actually a very thoughtful man. Xu Mia had a fiery temper, so she would often erupt over some trivial matters, but Long Yue never fought fire with fire. He would always bear her fury in silence. He was like a safe haven for her, and she had grown accustomed to having him by her side, which was why she hadn't insisted on returning to the Douluo Federation. With the important status he held in this empire, it was simply unfeasible for him to travel to the Douluo Federation. Despite her headstrong personality, she was actually quite gentle on the inside, and she decided to stay with him out of consideration for his situation. Yue's Heng Yu strode forward to greet the Monster 8 kings first. Long time no see. Long Yue shook hands with him, and replied, Indeed, it's been a long time. We're very glad to see that you're all still alive and well. My apologies for this welcome, but we really couldn't wait any longer for this rematch. Chapter 1307. Yue's Heng Yu smiled, and said, We understand. We're actually very much looking forward to this sparring match as well. Long Yue nodded in response. Yue's Heng Yu was more mature than he had been in the past. He was the eldest among the male members of Shrek's 7 monsters, so he had stepped forward in Tang Wulin's absence. The rest of the Monster 8 kings also greeted Shrek's 6 monsters in a relatively friendly manner. However, both sides were sizing up one another, eagerly anticipating the commencement of the match. At the same time, they were all struck by a sense of nostalgia, as well as a smorgasbord of emotions. They had all grown into young men and women with their own careers, and each of them had a high-ranking spot in their own respective domains. Compared to their past selves, they were no longer completely lacking inhibitions. Humans were social creatures, so they would inevitably be affected by society. So even though they were all full of anticipation toward this sparring match, this wasn't a purely enjoyable event as it would have been for them in the past. The smiling Douluo had also stepped onto the platform at this point, and he arrived in between the two sides with a smile on his face. This is a sparring match, so make sure you don't go too far. When someone is about to lose the ability to battle, then I'll step in to eliminate them. You're all elite young members of the Tang sect, so make sure to remember at all times that this is not a battle of life and death. Yes, everyone answered in unison. All right, then prepare to begin. I'm sure everyone's growing tired of waiting. Long Yue latched onto Xu Mia's hand in a very natural manner, then patted Dai Yuan's shoulder before stepping off the platform with Dai Yuna. He didn't need to say anything to Dai Yuan. They had been brothers for so many years that they had already developed a tacit understanding with one another. There was no need for verbal communication. All they had to do was perform to the best of their abilities. Yue's Heng Yu looked on with disappointment in his eyes as Long Yue left the platform. Thus, there were only 12 people left on the platform. Shrek's 6 monsters consisted of Yuan and Yui, Yizinglan, Yue's Heng Yu, Xu Shaoan, Xi, and Xu Lizzie, while the Monster 6 kings consisted of Tiger King Dai Yuan, Fox King Sun Yu, Wolf King Hulantong, Wind King Lin San, Pagoda King Yuja, and Shadow King Teng Teng. The smiling Douluo made a hand signal, and the protective barrier slowly appeared over the entire drill ground. At the same time, it cut off all sound from the outside world, so there was only peace and quiet on the platform. All of the spectators fell silent and focused their attention on the 12 people on the platform, who retreated in unison and adopted their respective formations. Among the Monster 6 kings, Tiger King Dai Yuan stood at the very forefront with Wolf King Hulantong and Wind King Lin San on either side of him. Behind him were Fox King Sun Yu and Shadow King Teng Teng, while Pagoda King Linja brought up the rear. The 6 of them had arranged themselves into a triangular formation. Shrek's 6 monsters were also in a triangular formation with Yuan and Yui, Yizinglan, and Yue's Heng Yu at the front, forming a wall of assault system soul masters. Behind this trio were Xu Lizzie and Xu Shaoan, and curiously enough, the agility system Soulmaster, she, had been left to bring up the rear. The two triangular formations were very symmetrical from a bird's eye view. The smiling Douluo's powerful voice rang out. Begin. The match between the most elite young members of the Tang sect from two different continents finally commenced. Long Yue stood beside the drill ground and looked on with an intense gaze that was shared by Shumia and Dayuna as well. The Monster 8 Kings had been looking forward to this match for a very long time. They had always been unwilling to accept the defeat they had suffered all those years ago, and the best way to erase that shameful experience was naturally to rewrite it with a victory. Both sides sprang into action almost in complete unison. They all released their martial souls as well as their suits of battle armor. No one was planning to hold back during this match. A series of dazzling soul rings emerged from beneath their feet, and specks of light surfaced over their bodies as they donned their suits of battle armor. A sinister-looking halo with a sawtooth border appeared beneath Dayuan's feet, while a suit of battle armor that was as pristine white as jade quickly appeared over his body. His breastplate was in the shape of a giant tiger's head, and his suit of battle armor seemed to be very thick and heavy, giving him a very imposing appearance. His aura swelled dramatically, and as he released his suit of battle armor, he also completed his white tiger diamond transformation, transforming him into a huge tiger. The domain halo beneath his feet indicated that he was definitely wearing a suit of three-word battle armor, and a pair of white wings spread open on his back. Sharp tiger claws sprang out of his suit of battle armor from both his hands and feet, then combined as one with the tiger claws released by his martial soul. A fearlessly domineering aura erupted from his body, and the thunderous tiger's roar could be heard reverberating through the air. Meanwhile, Wolf King Hulantong had spread open a pair of azure wings, and a suit of azure battle armor that gave off a dangerous aura appeared over his body. His pauldrons were in the shape of a dragon's head and a wolf's head, and there was no halo beneath his feet, so this was clearly a suit of two-word battle armor. A suit of streamlined green battle armor had appeared over Wind King Lin San's body, and there was also no domain halo beneath his feet, but 8 soul rings had risen up around him, consisting of 4 purples and 4 blacks. There were 4 major levels of battle armor, and there was a vast disparity between each level. Dayuan was the current rightful heir to the throne, so it naturally wasn't difficult for him to get his hands on a suit of three-word battle armor. However, for normal cultivators, even if they were prodigies of Monster Academy, it was not that easy to secure a suit of three-word battle armor. Hence, Hulantong and Lin San still had suits of two-word battle armor, and the Tang sect would craft their suits of three-word battle armor for them in 2 or 3 years at most. Another member of the Monster 6 Kings who possessed a suit of three-word battle armor was standing behind them. Fox King Sumu's 8 large tails were all raised up into the air, and he also had a suit of white battle armor that somehow gave off a furry appearance. Whatever metal was used to construct the suit of battle armor, it somehow appeared more like a fox pelt than metallic armor. If it weren't for the domain halo beneath his feet, one could easily be misled into thinking that this wasn't a suit of battle armor at all. Standing beside Sumu was Shadow King Tang Tang, who had a suit of two-word battle armor, and he also possessed one of the lowest cultivation ranks among the Monster 8 Kings. However, there was one more three-word battle armor master among the 6 of them, and that was Pagoda King Yija. Yija's cultivation rank was inferior to that of Lin San and Hulantong, but she possessed the 7 treasures Blaze Pagoda, which was renowned as the #1 support tool martial soul in existence. She would definitely be able to provide enhancements of the highest caliber, and it was exactly because of this that the Tang sect had pulled together their resources to construct a suit of three-word battle armor for her first. Yija's suit of three-word battle armor was extremely grandiose in design. It was translucent and shimmering with rainbow light, with all types of gems embedded onto its surface, making it look more like a spectacular artistic masterpiece. As soon as Yija had become a soul sage, the Tang sect had crafted her this suit of battle armor without any hesitation, and it was of an even higher caliber than Sumu's suit of battle armor. A soul sage who possessed the 7 treasures Blaze Pagoda martial would be able to provide enhancements that could virtually double the powers of all of their allies. Such a formidable enhancement effect would undoubtedly be a nightmare for all those who stood against them. 3 sets of three-word battle armor, 3 sets of two-word battle armor, 3 soul Douluos, and 3 soul sages. This was a very formidable lineup regardless of which continent they were on. On top of that, they were the elite young talents of Monster Academy, so their true powers would definitely be far superior to soul masters of the same cultivation rank. There were already cheers and praise ringing out across the entire drill ground. At the same time, Shrek 7 monsters had also released their martial souls and suits of battle armor. Yuan and Yui was clad in a suit of dark yellow battle armor with a dual layer halo beneath her feet. The outer section of the halo was of a dark yellow color, while the inner section was dark red. The two colors intertwined with one another, and a series of extremely complex patterns could be seen within the halo. In particular, there seemed to be an entire small world within the red section of the halo. The suit of battle armor itself didn't seem to be remarkable in any way. It was completely understated and very simplistic, just like Yuan and Yui's understated personality. Chapter 1308. The domain halo beneath her feet indicated that this was a suit of three-word battle armor as well. Standing beside Yuan and Yui was Yingling, and she also had a domain halo beneath her feet. The halo was of a faint golden color and had a saw blade shape with each and every saw blade resembling a sharp sword. The inner circle was very small, and it was more like a sword than a saw blade. Her suit of battle armor was as dazzling as the starry night sky, and even though it was entirely black in color, it seemed that there were countless stars sprinkled over its black surface. What was even more peculiar was that these stars seemed to be constantly moving over her suit of battle armor. This was another suit of three-word battle armor. A hint of astonishment flashed through the smiling Douluo's eyes at the sight of their suits of battle armor. As a veteran three-word battle armor master himself, he was far more familiar with battle armor than everyone else present. All battle armor masters knew that there were different levels of battle armor, but not everyone could tell how powerful a suit of battle armor was at a single glance. However, the smiling Douluo was able to do this as he had seen far too many suits of battle armor. As such, it was quite clear to him that Yingling and Yuan and Yui's suits of three-word battle armor were far from ordinary. Yuan and Yui's suit of battle armor appeared to be very simplistic, but the domain halo beneath her feet was very remarkable. Generally speaking, a domain halo would only be a single color. The two colors indicated that this was very likely 2 domains. Just what kind of powerful material could withstand the power of 2 domains at once? In contrast, Yingling's domain halo looked very straightforward, but upon closer inspection, one would discover that every time the specks of starlight on her suit of battle armor shimmered, the halo beneath her feet would undergo some intriguing changes. It seemed that a small world had been formed between the domain and the suit of battle armor. Planar manifestation of a domain halo was one of the defining characteristics of a suit of 4-word battle armor. Yingling's suit of 3-word battle armor hadn't reached that level yet, but the effect of planar manifestation was already beginning to show, which indicated that the materials used for her suit of battle armor were most likely quite extraordinary as well. In contrast, among the 3 battle armor masters in the Monster 6 Kings, it seems that only Yija's suit of battle armor could just barely compare with those of Yingling and Yuan and Yui. Even as the rightful heir to the throne, Dayuan's suit of battle armor was constructed from inferior materials in comparison. This indicated that Shrek 7 monsters had to be supported by an extremely talented blacksmith. Could it be that divine blacksmith Sen who had personally forged the metals required for their suits of battle armor? Design and construction were both very important determining factors in how powerful a suit of battle armor would be, but the most important factor was the material used. The better the material, the more powerful the core circuit would be able to handle. Good materials would make the carving of the circuit a lot easier, and would also provide the potential for more to be achieved. Aside from Yingling and Yuan and Yui, the rest of Shrek's 6 monsters were looking rather strange as none of them had full suits of battle armor. Yui's Hengyu had pauldrons, a cuirass, a helmet, and gauntlets, but no armor on his legs, and nor had his battle armor been fitted with a pair of wings. The pieces of battle armor that he did possess were white with golden patterns that fit very well with his lavish style. The white armor complemented by the golden light created a very grandiose sight to behold, but it still looked off as the suit of armor wasn't complete. In contrast, Shu Lizzie was missing a left gauntlet, a pair of greaves, and a helmet, so he was missing a bit more than Yui's Hengyu. The pieces of battle armor that he did possess were yellow in color, and they were slightly more complex in design than his past Guardian Star battle armor. Aside from Yingling and Yuan and Yui, Shu Shaoan had the most complete suit of battle armor, missing only her left gauntlet. The entire suit of battle armor was transparent and also had specks of shimmering starlight within it. The Star Wheel Staff martial soul in her hand seemed to have fused as one with her suit of battle armor, giving her a rather blurry and indistinct appearance, as if she belonged to the starry sky rather than this world. As for Shi, he looked like he wasn't even wearing a suit suit of battle armor. However, upon closer inspection, one would be able to just barely make out a suit of near-invisible battle armor under the illumination of his 7 soul rings, and his body also began to fade out of existence. All of Shrek's 6 monsters had 7 soul rings each, the majority of which were black. On the surface, it seemed that the monster 6 kings held a clear advantage. 3 of them were already at the soul Douluo level, while Shrek's 6 monsters didn't even have a single soul Douluo among their ranks, which was quite a huge disparity. In terms of battle armor, it was a contest of 3 word battle armor masters up against 2. The rest of Shrek's 6 monsters all had incomplete suits of battle armor, which naturally placed them at a further disadvantage against the monster 6 kings, all of whom were fully equipped with battle armor. Hence, no matter how one looked at it, the monster 6 kings clearly had the upper hand. However, was that really the case? In the eyes of experienced individuals and the monster 6 kings themselves, the situation was different. The battle armor worn by Shrek's 6 monsters was rather inconsistent, but all of them were wearing 3 word battle armor. Perhaps the overall enhancements provided by incomplete suits of 3 word battle armor would be inferior to those of complete suits of 2 word battle armor, but 3 word battle armor possessed some special properties that would be on suits of 2 word battle armor. Even more importantly, this meant that all of Shrek's 6 monsters were going to become 3 word battle armor masters in the near future. In contrast, the 3 2-word battle armor masters among the monster 8 kings hadn't even begun constructing their suits of 3 word battle armor yet. Several years ago, when they had last faced Shrek's 7 monsters during the youth tournament, they had been far superior to Shrek's 7 monsters in both cultivation rank and battle armor caliber. However, it seemed that they were about to be overtaken in all aspects soon. There was a vast gulf between 6 ring soul emperors and 7 ring soul sages. After becoming a soul sage, the caliber of one's martial soul, battle armor, and soul skills would comprise a significant portion of their power. As for just how much of a disparity there was between soul sages and soul Douluos, that was much more specific to individual situations. This seemed to have been quite a lengthy process, but in reality, only several seconds had passed since the commencement of the battle. The display of power put on by both sides had attracted the attention of all of the spectators, and they were all waiting with bated breath for the battle to begin. A rumbling tiger's roar rang out across the entire venue, and the giant tiger's head on Dou Yuan's cuirass suddenly lit up. A gust of fierce winds was swept up, and the winds propelled him forward as he charged toward Shrek's 6 monsters. As he did so, a series of halos appeared beneath his feet. This was not one of Dou Yuan's abilities. Instead, it was originating from their main control system Soulmaster, Sumu. These were his speed-reducing halo and soul-power-draining halo, and they were quickly traveling toward Shrek's 6 monsters. Behind Sumu, Yuja raised her right hand, and a dazzling 7 treasures glazed pagoda appeared. A streak of rainbow light then shot forth from the pagoda and fell upon all of her teammates. In particular, Dou Yuan had a total of 6 streaks of light injected into his body, and his aura immediately swelled drastically, making it comparable to that of a title Douluo in a suit of 3 word battle armor. With the enhancements of the 7 treasures glazed pagoda, Dou Yuan would be able to hold his own even against a title Douluo. Chapter 1309. Shadow King Tang Tang rushed off to the side as an afterimage while Wind King Lin San followed closely behind Dou Yuan like a shadow. Huolantong's 7th soul ring lit up, and his body was also being illuminated by the enhancing lights of the 7 treasures glazed pagoda as he transformed into a massive wolf that was over 4 meters tall and over 8 meters in length. His entire body was covered in battle armor and a suit of armor formed by dragon scales, and he charged forward at a speed that exceeded even that of Dou Yuan. The 6 of them were working together seamlessly and displayed the full extent of their power from the get-go. Meanwhile, Shrek's 6 monsters had also sprung into action. Yuan and Yui led the way, taking a large stride forward as her body instantly swelled drastically in size. Dou Yuan was already very imposing in his giant tiger form, but he was still dwarfed by Yuan and Yui's diamond titan. Her suit of earthy yellow battle armor instantly became as thick and heavy as a mountain, and a fearsome primordial aura erupted from her titan giant ape true body, which was over 8 meters tall. The titan giant ape looked straight ahead with a calm expression, then swung both fists through the air in unison, launching them toward both Dou Yuan and Huolantong at once. Huolantong's dragon wolf true body abruptly accelerated and sprang forth like lightning. A giant dragon seemed to have surfaced over his body and flapped his wings vigorously, evading Yuan and Yui's fist before crashing directly toward her chest as fast as lightning. After attaining a martial soul true body, every single one of a soul master's attacks would become significantly more powerful than they had been in the past. Huolantong had a vast wealth of battle experience, and he knew that in Tang Wulin's absence, Yuan and Yui was undoubtedly going to be the core of Shrek's 6 monsters. If he could eliminate her from the battle or force her into retreat, then the rest of Shrek's 6 monsters would all be completely exposed. Furthermore, Huolantong was also extremely confident in his own powers. With the enhancements provided by Yuja, his powers would be close to those of a soul Douluo, so he was confident that he would be able to force back even the most powerful of assault system soul sages. These thoughts all flashed through his mind in an instant, and as he continued to hurtle through the air, he was already planning his next attack. With Dou Yuan assisting him from the side, there was no way that Yuan and Yui would choose to take them on in a direct clash. Just as he was thinking this, a burst of strange suction force suddenly appeared, and Huolantong was stunned to find that he was being led astray from his original course. He was forcibly drawn to the side, and the giant fist that he should have already evaded was suddenly right in front of him. After a brief split second of shock, Huolantong adjusted to take on the oncoming fist, but instead of crashing directly toward him, he found that it was crashing down toward him instead. He immediately felt as if he had sunk into a swamp-like vortex, and even with Yuja's enhancements, he was struck by a sense of powerlessness. His dragon scales immediately stood up on end before flying toward the fist as a metallic storm. At the same time, he abruptly flipped over in midair, swiping his wolf claws toward the fist as opposed to meeting it with his back. He had reacted extremely quickly, and his execution and judgment had also both been exceptional. Without the enhancements from the 7 treasures glazed pagoda, there was no way that he could have performed his series of maneuvers so quickly, but Huolantong was already used to this. He and Yuja were lovers, so they always battled alongside one another, and he had grown accustomed to Yuja's enhancements long ago. Right at this moment, the fist that was crashing down from above suddenly disappeared, only to be replaced by a vortex that swept up the storm of dragon scales before sending them flying in all directions, including toward Dou Yuan and the rest of the monster 6 kings. In the next instant, Huolantong's back landed on the ground, and he immediately sprang to his feet. This first clash had taken place within the span of just a few seconds, and Huolantong's offensive momentum had been completely nullified. In his mind, both he and Yuan and Yui had gone all out during that clash, but that wasn't the case in the eyes of the spectators as Yuan and Yui was facing another opponent as well. Dou Yuan rushed forward in his giant tiger form, swiping his claws viciously toward Yuan and Yui's right fist. The sharp tiger claws sliced several black rifts into the air, and they possessed offensive power equivalent to an attack from a title Douluo. The same spiraling suction force also acted upon Dou Yuan's body, and his brows furrowed slightly, but he remained as firm as ever. The rumbling tiger's roar he was uttering suddenly became louder, and his claws tore through the vortex before clashing with Yuan and Yui's fist. Clang! A clear clang rang out, and Yuan and Yui's enormous titan giant ape body swayed slightly before taking a step backward. She then immediately ducked down before ramming her shoulder toward Dou Yuan's chest. Meanwhile, Huolantong had just clambered to his feet, and his dragon scales were flying in all directions. Even though it was only for a very short time, Yuan and Yui had managed to keep both of these assault system soul masters at bay on her own, and that was even after they'd been enhanced by the 7 treasures glazed pagoda. Dou Yuan was extremely stunned by this. He was well aware of how powerful his own tiger claws were, but they had only left a few faint white marks on his opponent's battle armor, and these marks quickly faded away. Just what kind of material could be this resolute? In the face of Yuan and Yui's shoulder charge, Dou Yuan's 6th soul ring lit up, and his body instantly took on an illusionary quality, transforming into white streaks of light that converged inward. This was his white tiger devil slash. Clashes between assault system soul masters were always the most exhilarating to watch. At the same time as Dou Yuan was unleashing his white tiger devil slash, the speed-reducing halo and soul-power-draining halo also arrived, and they both encompassed Yuan and Yui at the same time. However, right at this moment, the entire drill ground suddenly fell dark. Specks of shimmering light appeared in the sky, and countless dazzling stars had emerged above the drill ground. Huolantong looked up at the mesmerizing stars and was struck by a sense of captivation. Just as he was wondering where these stars had come from, one of them suddenly descended from above and reached him almost instantaneously. The star posed no threat to him. Instead, from Huolantong's perspective, being illuminated by the star would be the best thing to ever happen to him. Following that last clash against Yuan and Yui, his momentum had been completely halted, so there was no way that he could evade the descending star. Right at this moment, a halo appeared above him, and the star was suddenly reversed, shooting back up into the sky. This was Sumu's repelling halo, and it had saved Huolantong just in the nick of time. Cold sweat immediately began began to beat up on Huolantong's forehead. It was undoubtedly the case that if that seemingly innocuous attack had actually struck him, he would have been eliminated for sure. What is that? Right at this moment, countless streaks of starlight began to descend all over the entire drill ground, affording the Monster Six Kings no avenue for evasion. Fox King Sumyu's third soul ring lit up even further, and with the enhancements he received from Yuja, he was able to conjure up repelling halos that reversed the trajectories of these stars. Even so, he was still extremely astonished. Even though this attack encompassed a very large area, he could tell that it was still extremely formidable and hadn't sacrificed quality over quantity. If it weren't for the fact that his repelling halo just so happened to be a counter to this soul skill, all of them would be in dire straits. Thump. A dull thump rang out, and Dou stumbled backward a few steps, while Yuan and Yui's body only swayed slightly. They were also being enhanced by Shu Lizzie's steamed buns. Under the enhancement effects of the bloodthirsty red bean bun and sturdy crystal bun, Yuan and Yui was like an immovable mountain. Dou Yuan's white tiger devil slash was indeed very formidable, but Yuan and Yui had countered it using her devil titan soul skill. Regardless of how many attacks and skills Dou Yuan had, she was determined to keep him at bay with her astonishing defenses and strength. The effect of her battle armor really shone through at a time like this, and her defensive prowess was so extraordinary that even Dou Yuan was struck by a sense of powerlessness. Chapter 1310. A gentle breeze swept past, and countless wind blades suddenly appeared behind Dou Yuan, sweeping up the flying dragon scales at bay before forming an enormous tornado that enveloped Yuan and Yui. Piercing slicing sounds rang out as the dragon scales reached over her suit of battle armor, sending countless sparks flying through the air. In the face of such a fearsome attack, even a piece of metal would have most likely been sliced into shreds, yet Yuan and Yui merely disregarded the attack as yellow light erupted from her suit of battle armor. She lowered her own center of gravity, and widened her stance to create a more stable base, then threw another punch. In the face of her enormous fist, the entire space seemed to have congealed, and the tremendous resulting suction force was far more powerful than what she had unleashed before. Her punch seemed to have struck nothing but empty air, but both Huolantong and Dou Yuan felt a powerful burst of suction force that made them stumble in an unsteady manner. Yuan and Yui's three-word battle armor domain was known as Mountainous Abyss. It possessed extremely powerful suction and defensive properties against all physical attacks, and it also increased the power of her own attacks by more than twofold. In addition to the ultra-powerful defensive prowess of her suit of battle armor, she was the most resolute defense that Shrek's 7 monsters had to offer. Even Tang Wulian had been inferior to her from a purely defensive perspective prior to the completion of his suit of three-word battle armor. Confidence stemmed from power. Shrek's 6 monsters were confident enough to propose a 6-on-7 match as they had a clear understanding and judgment of their own powers. The howling wind ceased, and the tornado was destroyed by a single punch. Prior to the match, who could have imagined that the 7-ring Yuan and Yui would be able to keep both Dou Yuan and Huolantong at bay, especially when they were being enhanced by the 7 treasures blazed pagoda. Fox King Sumyu was only able to use his speed-reducing halo and soul-power draining halo on Yuan and Yui for an instant before being forced to focus wholeheartedly on keeping the stars in the sky at bay with his repelling halos. However, that split second alone was still enough for Huolantong to pounce, and he sprang toward Yuan and Yui before swinging his paws directly toward her. Yuan and Yui shielded herself with her left arm, and a dull thump rang out as she was forced back a few steps by Huolantong. Dou Yuan immediately followed up, charging toward Yuan and Yui as well. But right at this moment, Huolantong, Dou Yuan, and Lin San were all struck by a scorching sensation that originated from up above. The starry night sky suddenly lit up, and a scintillating sun suddenly appeared in the sky. Sumyu let loose a muffled groan as his repelling halos were instantly vanquished by the scorching sun, which crashed down directly between Huolantong, Dou Yuan, and Lin San. The enormous resulting explosion was intermingled with a terrifying heat wave and an extremely powerful holy aura. All three of them were forced to stumble back a few steps as they did everything in their power to withstand the attack. The scintillating light of the sun receded slightly, and Yui's Hengyu was revealed with his entire body shimmering with golden light. His holy angel martial soul was glowing with unprecedented radiance, and scorching holy powers erupting outward in all directions. Even battle armor was becoming scorching hot in the face of this terrifying heat wave. Wind King Lin San had the weakest defenses, so he was the first one to be forced to spring back. At the same time, he swept both hands through the air to send 2 pillars of wind hurtling toward Yui's Hengyu. With Yui's Hengyu's interference, Yuan and Yui was able to catch her breath, and at the same time, countless stars began to descend from the heavens again. Sumyu erupted coldly as his 7th soul ring lit up, and at the same time, Yuja's 7th soul ring also lit up. Yuja transformed into a dazzling 7 treasures glazed pagoda that was 3 meters tall, and as the pagoda hovered in midair, all of the enhancements received by her teammates were instantly increased drastically. A layer of bright rainbow light appeared over all of their bodies, and at the same time, Yuja's domain halo lit up, increasing the already staggering 70% enhancement effect by a further 10%. With her support, all of the Monster Six Kings had their powers enhanced to the title Douluo level, and this was truly a testament to the 7 treasures glazed pagoda status as the #1 tool martial soul in existence. After becoming a soul sage, Yuja had become the core of the entire team. The repelling halos surfaced once again, and they rose up into the air alongside the rainbow light, forming a rainbow light barrier that repelled all of the descending specks of starlight. It was also right at this moment that Shadow King Tang Tang appeared out of thin air behind Shu Shaoan, and he also had rainbow light shimmering over his body. He reached out like lightning to eliminate Shu Shaoan from the battle. The match was over. The same thought ran through the minds of all of the spectators. It was undoubtedly the case that at this point in the battle, the result had already been decided, and Shrek's 6 monsters had been comprehensively crushed. As expected, the Monster 8 Kings were truly legends among legends. Sumyu had controlled the entire battlefield, while Yuja provided everyone with extraordinary enhancements. With the enhancements, the other 4 were able to crush their opponents, and in contrast, the teamwork of Shrek's 6 monsters had been made to appear a lot more clumsy and lackluster. The starry sky seemed to be very powerful, but it was completely countered by Sumyu, and everything was over, or at least, that was supposed to be the case. All of a sudden, one of the stars in the sky became particularly bright, and it descended from above, completely disregarding Sumyu's repelling halos. A plump hand then appeared behind Shu Shaoan's neck with unerring accuracy, and Tang Tang was greeted by the side of a rotund face, as well as a burst of tremendous soul power fluctuations. The chubby jade-like hand caught his wrist firmly, preventing him from being able to reach out any further, and purple light instantly erupted from that hand. A burst of destructive power immediately surged into Tang Tang's body, threatening to destroy his soul, and he was instantly rendered completely powerless. Meanwhile, Dou Yuan and Huolantong were charging toward Yuan and Yui in unison. Lin San's wind pillars had been vanquished by the holy angel, but he had unleashed his martial soul true body, transforming into a blade of wind that was over 3 meters in length before sweeping through the air with devastating force. As opposed to taking evasive measures, Yuan and Yui abruptly stepped forward and thrust both fists forward again, still relying on her divine cloud vortex fists. Boom boom. 2 resounding booms rang out, and Huolantong was sent flying like a ragdoll, while Dou Yuan's power was completely nullified by the divine cloud vortex fists before he was struck by Yuan and Yui's huge fist. Even though his suit of 3-word battle armor had nullified most of the power from the punch, he was still forced to stumble back 6 or 7 steps in succession before stumbling onto his backside. How could this be? How had she suddenly become so powerful? The same thought appeared in the minds of Dou Yuan and Huolantong at the same time. Meanwhile, another speck of dazzling starlight descended from above, slicing through the repelling halos with ease before reaching Sumyu in an instant. A golden halo appeared beneath Sumyu's feet, and he was completely immobilized for an instant. A sword flashed through the air, and his 8 tails protected him of their own accord, but he was still sent flying by the attack. His entire body trembled, and the light shimmering from his suit of 3-word battle armor dimmed significantly as fur from his fox tails were sent flying in all directions. How was this possible? How had their opponents become so powerful? Holy light shone down from the heavens, melting away the oncoming blade of wind, and a pillar of light of judgment descended upon Lin San. The holy angel then pressed its advantage, unleashing a barrage of powerful attacks that forced Lin San to stumble back in retreat. The sudden turn of the tables left everyone reeling. Was it really the case that Shrek's 6 monsters had suddenly become more powerful? As Dou Yuan sat heavily down onto the ground, he realized that this was not the case. It wasn't that their opponents had become more powerful, they had simply become weaker. In the instant before all of their opponents' attacks had struck, the rainbow light shimmering over their bodies had completely disappeared. The 7 treasures glazed pagoda was already gone, and the smiling Douluo had taken Yuja off the competition platform. In her place, a handsome young man was standing with a wide grin on his face. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.